All right, I'd like to call
No, actually, I don't want
the
to.
interview of the school board meeting to
Something like that for me.
order. It's been a declaration of public notice. All right, so get moving right along. We're running just a couple minutes behind, but we're going to go ahead and keep going here. So, first up is Sarah Smith.
Start when I'm ready. All right. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to address you today and share my story and the background that I believe will make me an asset to the Monona Grove School Board. I'm originally from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, the daughter and granddaughter and great-granddaughter of public educators. I was raised on a farm and raised with an incredible respect for teachers in public schools. I attended a beautiful little elementary school that was called Little Red Schoolhouse, truly. Our school was a pillar of our township. It wasn't just a place we spent 8 hours a day in the classroom. We really cultivated a community there. We were able to build deep relationships with our classmates, teachers, and across all of our families. In working toward earning a master's degree years later in educational policy, I studied the structure of schooling and found that the concept of democratic schooling was theory come to life at Little Red. Democratic schools rely on the dignity and rights for all parties involved, a constant push toward the common good, an open flow of ideas with informed citizens, and faith in the individual capacity of people to do what is right. In that little schoolhouse, I was given the opportunity to grow and succeed and struggle and fail, and ultimately find my confidence in my voice. I was given the room to be me, and the influence of that school has made me who I am today. That's the kind of educational experience that I want for every kid in Wisconsin. That's why I'm here today, and why, regardless of the appointment decision, I am also committed to running for the Monona Grove School Board in April. Our kids deserve the best possible educational experience to prepare them for their future, not only for their careers, but to support their growth as full human beings. Our schools and local governments are experiencing a great deal of change right now, and I have the background to serve this district well in navigating those changes. In my professional life, I have honed the skills necessary to keep up with policy changes, school funding streams, and innovative educational research. With administrations shifting nationally and statewide, we have to build systems and structures that will endure. We have a responsibility to create sustainably and leave a healthier environment than the one we're on track to leave right now. As our communities and demographics change, it's important that the growing number of young families moving into this district are also represented on our school board, so that we may more capably support the next generation of students. As a smaller district, we also have the unique opportunity to be more agile and innovative as we move into that future. Until then, it's also critical that we ensure that the students of today are feeling comfortable, safe, and supported in their classrooms. I'm not too far removed from today's students, so I know what it's like to undergo a lockdown drill as a student. I know what it's like to participate in multiple standardized tests each year and deal with the anxiety-inducing process of competitive college admissions. And I also know what it's like to then enter a shifting and often insecure job market. To ensure that our students are prepared, they need an educational environment that is free from bullying and anxiety, and instead an environment of mutual trust and respect and growth. I have a lot of faith in today's students, and I have a lot of faith in our teachers. I respect the profession of teaching more than I can say. The teachers of this state have been put through a lot lately, and all the while they've taught their students with generosity and patience and care, often with me. They all deserve fair and full compensation and manageable working conditions that are conducive to the creative art that is teaching. Our parents, teachers, and students are all parts of the puzzle that make up this great district. But even within those groups, it can often feel like we come from two different camps of Monona and Cottage Grove. And unfortunately, that's not unique to Monona Grove. Where I grew up, we were the country kids in the town of Brunswick, and often felt completely isolated from the Eau Claire area school district. And even recently, we've seen examples where that school district neglected the needs and input from the people of my hometown. As a public servant, I would be accessible to the folks of every corner of this district and would work to ensure that nobody ever feels left behind or ignored. When I was lucky enough to buy a home of my own in the Monona Grove district, I felt welcomed right away. I have loved getting to know the people of this incredible place, and I'm really proud to be here. I believe that it is the responsibility of people to serve their neighbors and work for the common good. That was something I learned at Little Red. And that's the perspective I'll bring to this board. Thank you.
So, to the question, what would you like to accomplish during your board appointment if you're selected?
So my goals as a school board member would be to build on the great work that this district has already done toward creating an open flow of community engagement and ideas and utilizing evidence-based policy while trusting and respecting the students and staff and parents of Monona Grove. In particular, I'd focus on 2 key areas in the short time that would be an appointment before the next election, which would be creating some opportunities for even more broad community engagement and focusing on policies that specifically support the mental health of students. In terms of creating opportunities for broader engagement, I have several things that I have listed that I would be interested in looking into and discussing further with other board members, including holding traveling board members in Cottage Grove schools on a semi-regular basis to make that more accessible to Cottage Grove parents. I would also pledge to visit every school in the district to meet with staff, parents, and students. I'd love to shadow teachers if possible to get a sense of the educational environment that students are experiencing. And review the process for setting and announcing meetings and putting meeting agendas out in advance to ensure that people have enough notice and that we're communicating it proactively instead of passively. Also, to ensure the mental health of students, I would want to make sure that every school and staff member has access to a suicide prevention policy. This is something that other states are even passing at the state level to require all districts to have. And it's very important for teachers to know the proper response in case they find a student that they feel might be contemplating suicide or self-harm. And related to that, reviewing professional development offerings and identifying opportunities to build mental health first aid training, QPR, which is question, persuade, refer, or some other mental health training for staff and teachers in schools to be able to respond appropriately.
Any questions for the board? Oh, I was going to say, come on, Susan.
I know, I didn't know I'd let you down. You know that, Andrew. So again, I'm really interested. I was very interested in the comment about you want young families represented. Not feeling moderately offended by that, but you know, you put in 10 or 12 years and your children went through this district. In fact, I was walking up the stairs thinking about kids in Nichols School. The evolution, the history, the legacy of where we've gone and where we've been able to go. Susan's background as a teacher in this district for years, having taught many of our children. Dean's background, understanding we do not have children in this district right now. Very close to having grandchildren in this district. They're all born, but they're living in different places. Andrew has young people. Eric, Peter's children also went through this district. So what is particularly different that a young parent, if you took all of us off the board and you put all young parents on, what improvement would that achieve in our board today?
I don't think a board of all young parents would be a positive thing either. I think a deliberative body needs to have a lot of different people representing a lot of different perspectives on it. And I think this board clearly has a lot of expertise and a lot of different perspectives currently. And that was just me looking inward on what I think I have to offer. I hope to someday have multiple children, if I'm being honest, and I would like to have them go to Monona Grove schools. I have no plan to ever move out of my house. I love it. And that's the perspective that I'm looking at that I would bring, is just from a person who hopes to someday have children that would be going into the schools, knowing that, you know, in that time there will be then other parents with children at different schools and at different stages in life also on the board.
You talked about broader engagement. What is the deficiency that you think needs to be addressed What are you trying to accomplish? What would you like to try and accomplish? What's the purpose of the broader engagement?
I just feel that there are always different perspectives to be brought in and ideas that we may not have heard about yet if we're not always out in the community and making people feel like they can access the board, and just making, you know, the biggest effort possible to come to people and meet them where they are, to hear those perspectives from people that maybe aren't always the ones included in, you know, a deliberation of this body.
Thank you.
Susan?
Again, I really appreciate your coming forward and talking about the two communities and the 7 miles where our kids always got their speeding tickets or whatever, of Madison. And again, I think one of the things that's been talked about is representation from both communities. What's your thought about your knowledge and understanding? So what happens with us is our kids intermarry, and so we become the bonded form of the communities, because sometimes I spend more time out in Andrew's neighborhood than I do in my own. What's your thought about if you live in Monona, how you bond with Cottage Grove, and if you live in Cottage Grove, how you bond with Monona? Both sides, both ways.
Yeah. Well, I think that is a difficult question, and that was, you know, just in trying to think of ways to reach out more to make that feel that those were both part of the same district and connect to those communities. Madison has started traveling as their board meetings. That was where that came from, is that potentially that could be another way to just meet them in their communities and see the insides of their schools and have it more accessible to parents that could walk to those schools. But I would love to have further conversations about ways to connect those two, because like I said, that's kind of where I grew up and what is, you know, still sort of the case for the township that my family's farm is in. That feeling of being geographically separated and relatively isolated from being able to have an impact on those decisions, because you can't always be in the room. So.
But and I think I was just going to mention too. I think the other thing that you see is we you know, who knows how far back you can go back and look at our history, but we actually did do school board meetings in the other buildings in both communities. We've done that. One of the main reasons we changed was because we couldn't do a live feed from the Cottage Grove community due to their lack of interface. And it's actually the school district funds with the city of Monona, basically our network,
Right.
that provides that service.
Yeah.
So again, there's always small challenges, and it's worth continuing to look at. But when this became the district office, no matter where it's centered, so does that seem, putting it in the district office where you can do the live feed and that kind of thing, does that seem sensible or reasonable in the thought process of that?
No, absolutely, and I think it makes sense to do a majority of meetings, you know, in the building, but maybe doing a quarterly meeting that's held somewhere else, not every meeting or not every other. And I also think, I mean, I know that this is, you know, on Monona Community Media, so it's on its YouTube channel, but there are other ways to live stream an event through, I mean, something on a Facebook Live even, but I think there are opportunities that could be explored to potentially engage even some maybe Cottage Grove students that would want to learn how to do more AV things, and that could be something that they work on, developing a project to be able to do that from their schools.
They do that at the high school. That would be worth going and seeing. It's impressive. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, we got less than a minute, so I don't think anybody else have any questions. We're not going to get it done in less than a minute. So. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up is Abe
Abe Salama.
Salama.
I'd like to start out by thanking the members of the board for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Abe Salama. I've been a resident of Monona for 16 years. I've been the parent of a Monona Grove School District student for the last 10. I'm counting the start of 9th grade as 10th year. And equally importantly, I look forward to being on the other side of it, being Monona resident without children in the district again. Looking forward to that with great eagerness. But the reason I bring that up is because I've felt as a stakeholder in the schools of our community the whole time that I've lived here. Before I had a child, period, before I had a child in the schools, the quality of schools in my community, to me, is a pretty good indicator of the quality of life in my community. There are volunteer opportunities that I took advantage of before I had children in the district that enriched me greatly and prepared me for being the parent of a child in the district. But I bring that up to say that I really believe in the concept of the stakeholder in this district, and that the stakeholders are a much larger group than I think previously has been thought or even articulated. Obviously, our students, our children who are students at our schools are stakeholders, without a doubt. They are both the product and the recipient of the product. It's fairly easy to see their stake in this. Equally easy to see family stake, families of students. Easy to see their role as stakeholders. But beyond that, I would argue that there are many circles of stakeholders in our district. And to the extent that my opportunity to possibly serve on this board helps articulate a vision in which residents of both of our communities, Monona and Cottage Grove, feel like, I keep using the same word, stakeholder, but we're stakeholders, we're investors, we're participants, we're volunteers, sometimes we're cheerleaders on the sidelines. To the extent that this board can facilitate every stakeholder, first identify and then engage the stakeholders of this district, I believe will be the measure of the success of mine or anybody's service on this board. I've spent the last 16 years working at, 20 years. 20 years. Working at 3 levels of government. I've worked for the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration, Division of Information Technology. I've worked for the Madison School District as a bilingual resource specialist. And I've worked for the last 13 years for Dane County Human Services. I am a human services caseworker. I work in the Division of Employment and Welfare Services. I'm on the front lines of our government's, at various levels, attempts to engage the poorest of the poor in our community. The office where I work, one of the things we say is that nobody comes to our office because they're having a great day. I work at the Dane County Job Center, and people come to our office because they need assistance with food security for their families, because they need assistance with medical care for their families, because they need assistance with sometimes child care, housing assistance for their families. These are the things that we manage in that office. One of the things I've had the rare opportunity to do, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later if I have a chance, is working on both the side, being on both the government side of the table and the opposite side of the table. In my capacity as a caseworker, I often have to speak and articulate for the government. I have to articulate positions related to policy and engagement to the recipients of government benefits. The flip side of that is that because I am a union member and a steward in my union, I often sit on the opposite side of the table from government as well. I believe that's given me a perspective on the workings of government that is pretty unique. I've had actual days in which, in the same room, on the physical same table, I've sat on one side of the meeting, on the first meeting, and then on the opposite side on the next meeting. I think in a school district that's in some ways so geographically, historically, culturally divided, somebody who's well practiced in having a foot in two spaces can't help but be an asset. So I thank you for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to answering any question that you have with regard to anything you like.
Okay, well, the question we have, the only question for tonight is, what would you like to accomplish during your board appointment if appointed?
There are three main things that I'd like to see as a result of my participation in this process and maybe my eventual service on this board. First off, I want to make it clear that I do not have the intention of running for the seat when it is up for election. The political process, frankly, doesn't come easily to me. It's a pretty good sized effort on my part to address a board like this. But I think it's an effort that's worthwhile. And I think that sometimes to get things done, we have to step outside of our comfort zone. As the son of immigrants in the United States, I've been stepping out of my comfort zone my whole life. I'm well practiced at that. I have ways of navigating that I share with many of my fellow sons and daughters of immigrants. But in any case, I think that would be the first of my objectives. The second would be to I'm sorry, I didn't finish that first objective. Because I'm not wanting to, I have no desire, no interest in running for election of a seat. I feel that gives the democratic process a chance to play out come election time. I am happy to be a placeholder on the open seat. I'm happy to put my talents, my experience to work in the benefit of my community. And then come election time, I will gladly step aside once the democratic process plays out and allow the next person to hold the seat. Without what I perceived as the additional, although perfectly legal and procedural, advantage of having a foothold on the seat before it actually comes up for election. That's first. Second, I'd like to do my part, do my humble best part to push to the forefront of the conscience of this body issues of equity and sustainability. I'd bring up both of them in the same sentence, in the same breath, because I think they're sides of the same coin. To the extent that our district provides different levels of access, levels of opportunity, types of outcomes to the students of our district because of who they are, because of what they look like, because of what their parents' life experience is. There's a lot of work to be done. I feel like I'm somebody who brings something to the table in terms of that. For the last year, I've been fortunate enough to serve on the Community Engagement, Communication, and Government Relations Committee of the school board. that committee, boy, was it a great opportunity to be a part of it. I felt a part of some really great conversations. A lot of them having to do with race, a lot of having to do with the engagement of our community that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have otherwise. That culminated in the showing of the film 13th at the Monona High School, which I think has the opportunity to be a seminal moment as our district looks forward in ways to engage the community, to engage all the stakeholders. Did I see you make a motion having to do with time?
Yeah,
Okay.
4 more minutes.
Oh,
Yeah, so.
the third main thing that I'd like to be able to say that my service in this board, if I'm lucky enough to be chosen, produce is precisely a way to. I stated earlier in terms of both my experience as a steward and in my experience as a son of immigrants. Dealing with life with one foot on one side and then another foot on the other side is pretty much the way I live my life. It's, as a member of this community, school community, it's pretty clear that there's somewhat of a divide between the Monona side and the Cottage Grove side. There couldn't help but be. Geographic, cultural, historical realities. There couldn't help but be differences. However, I've participated in organizations that have done a fairly successful job of bridging that gap. One of the main ones that I like to talk about is my service in the Monona Grove Soccer Club. Soccer Club is a private community athletic club. Provides the opportunity to play soccer for children from age 6 through 18 in Monona, Cottage Grove, both the town of Village, Cottage Grove, Blooming Grove, and many other communities actually. One of the things that is, one of the realities of that club is because our children develop in separate communities and have opportunities as young children to play ball in different communities. They have different coaching, different experience, different expectations. They're a part of 2 different cultures that ultimately get mashed together when they come together in U10 and U11 soccer for combined teams after being in community-based Cottage Grove and Monona Grove teams. That produces issues with regards to team formation. That produces issues with regards to opportunity, access, a lot of the key phrases that we talk about that are in the conversations that this very body has. Ultimately, I'm not going to pretend that running a successful soccer club is the same thing as the work that this board does, because it's not. But are there ways of bridging gaps that are real? Absolutely. Are there ways of conducting ourselves and listening to one another and respecting the places that we come from and the experiences that we articulate that are common to both ends of the spectrum in this district? Absolutely. I feel like I'm somebody who brings a good ability to navigate across complicated spaces and unite spaces that seem far apart. I think to the extent that my gifts in that area are able to be focused in the service of this board, I think that's the greatest contribution that I can make.
Thank you. Well, we have just less than a minute, so we will not be able to do a follow-up question. So,
I've got a quick one, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
You mentioned you sat on both sides of the table, gave you some insight in how government organizations and bodies work. Tell us about some of those insights.
For example, one of the ways in which I've experienced is having to do specifically with food policy from the Department of Agriculture, specifically the administration of the food stamp program. There are literally policy changes that are based on federal, state, and even municipal regulations that affect the implementation and the running of it every day. There are clients to whom literally it has to be explained month after month why their benefits change after month, based on income changes, based on a million other factors. Having to both advocate for the families that use our services, as well as help provide the services that my employer, county government, provides, is a pretty difficult act of push and pull, which I feel I've successfully navigated for 13 years, and darn it, I think I can put that gift to work here.
Time.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you to the board for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Just would have been interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hi. It's my turn, right?
You must be Chris.
Yes, I'm Chris.
Oh,
right.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Am I ready? All right.
You got this.
I'd like to say thank you for your time and the opportunity to have this interview. My name is Chris Bondurant. More or less a lifelong Monona resident, graduated from Monona Grove in 1984, live in Monona. I have 3 kids, 1 in the military and 2 that are at MG right now. As far as my opening statement, I would like the opportunity to bring new ideas along with energy and cooperation. I want to work with the school board. I don't want to work against anybody. I think that most people here recognize me from a few issues that I had with the school board. And I could easily just sit back and complain, but no, I'm going to put myself out there, and I want to work with the school board to make things better for the kids in Monona and Cottage Grove also. I want to work in a team environment, and I want to keep the kids always at the forefront. The kids will always come first with me, always. And I'd like to help direct this district towards the future. There's a lot of things coming up right now with money for sports and schools, and the difference between Cottage Grove and Monona, and how do we fix that? Okay, because it's obviously going to stay together. I'd really like kind of the definition of the unified district. And as far as my opening statement, I guess that's it. This isn't my true bailiwick. I haven't had a job interview in a long time. So. If anybody has a question for me, I'm willing to
The question
answer.
we have would be, what would you like to accomplish during your board appointment, if appointed?
Okay. Well, the first thing I'd like to do is build a good working relationship with the board members themselves. Because I don't think we're going to get anything done if we can't get along. Okay? And I know I have some fences to mend, and I believe that it's on both sides. Okay, I'd like to introduce new ideas that I have, along with other ideas that I have from talking to other MG parents. Okay? Since my issues that I've had a lot of people come up and talk to me about the school board. Are you going to run? Do you want to run? You know. So I mean, right now it feels like this is the right time for me to be here, because it'll give me a year to learn the job. And then, I mean, I would like to, if I do this, I'm not going to just do it for a year. I want to keep, I'm looking to run for office or board, whatever, okay? I'm not looking to just come in and fill in for Jeff. I certainly wish that wasn't the case right now. I'd like to introduce, I also like to learn from the other board members. I know that there's a lot of knowledge in the board also. So I'm not going to come in with the idea that I know everything. I have a lot to learn. I know that. And we all do at every stage of life. Okay. I would like to help build the community throughout the district. The only time the kids come together at first is in GDS. So I really think that's where you need to start. Okay. And the problems I had when I came to the school board were those exact problems, that they weren't building community. They were more or less, I felt, tearing it apart with the basketball and the way that they had the A and Bs. I don't want to get into all that right now. But so I would very much like to help with the building of the community through the school district. And as I said before, some of this is just to see if running for the school board would be a good fit for me. And I think it would. I'm a little nervous right now, but it'll get better. So I mean, honestly, that's what I want to do. I want to help build community. I want to help direct the district. And I have some ideas that I think are good that I've talked to other MG parents, both Cottage Grove and Monona, that think, wow, that's a good idea. Why doesn't that be? But as far as my ideas go, I don't know how to get them to the board, other than to sit here and come to a board meeting and put out my ideas. And maybe that's what I need to do. But I think as a part of the board, that I would be of good service to the board. And I understand that it is a time commitment. And maybe I don't understand how big of a time commitment yet, but I'm willing to put forth that time.
Any questions from the board? Peter?
I didn't.
Oh, I thought. I was back to that.
I haven't formulated a question.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
You didn't have one?
One of the things you kind of alluded to was building engagement, having the community more engaged with the district, building those relationships. Do you have any thoughts about, again, we work on that every day, but
Okay, so some of it too the only way we're going to really do it is once the kids start getting into school together. It's really hard before that. I mean, when you have kids that are only up to 5th grade, we're not running out to Cottage Grove for play dates because they don't know those kids yet. So I think some of the best ways is intramural sports. And why don't we offer intramural sports? When I was at Winnequa back in the day, they had tackle football. What a great way for the Cottage Grove kids and the Monona kids to get to know each other. Once they get to GDS, what do they got? They got basketball where they separate everybody. They separate all the club kids from the non-club kids instead of having a big intramural thing. I think we could have, and especially at high school, I think intramural, because we have too many kids not involved in sports. We have too few kids that feel that they belong in the starting role because they're the one, whose parents drove them to practice and blah, blah, blah. So I think that we should really have a strong intramural base for these kids. How else are they going to get to know each other after school? Because the kids in Monona hop on a bus and ride home, they sure get to know each other there. Those kids do. They don't really, they get to know the Cottage Grove kids only during class and at lunch. And then when they go home, as a parent of a Monona kid, I don't care to run a Cottage Grove that often so that my kid can hang out there. I do it, but we all know what it is. It's an hour. So I really think that through sports, that's a lot of way that parents meet each other. And it doesn't have to be just sports. But that's where I feel the most comfortable with my coaching experience and my kids playing sports. That I've met a lot of good friends. Parents do that. A lot of kids. I love it when a kid comes up to me and says, "Hey, coach." I love that. So I think that we could do a lot for these kids just with intramural sports. We keep them busy, give them something to do after school. We already have the facilities. And I have different ideas on facilities that I'd love to bring forward sometime.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. All right. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beth, take care. Thank you.
All right. Next up, she's ready. Becky Roth.
ready?
You ready?
Not really.
We're ready.
No,
Ready.
hi, I'm Becky Roth. I am a mom of 2 girls. One is a 3rd grader at Winnequa, and another is a 3-year-old who I'm staying home with. I taught in the Madison district for 13 years, and education is kind of my heart and soul, my passion. And although I'm home right now with my daughter, when she goes off to school, I'll go back to teaching. I haven't interviewed in a really long time, since one of my first jobs, so bear with me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview and to possibly be part of this board. One of the reasons that I'd like to be on the board and something that I'd like to work towards while I'm on the board is looking at student growth. Over the last 3 educational year terms, we've been behind the state average in student growth. So for me, paying attention to all that stuff, it came up as a red flag. And I'd like to take the opportunity, if I were appointed to the board, to look into why are we at the place we're at? What can we do to move that growth rate forward? And I have some thoughts on that, and that would kind of be my major focus, is looking at kind of learning and curriculum, and how to make student growth increase. One of the things that I know that we've recently started in the Monona School District is giving an education that is related to the Common Core state standards. That's newer in the last couple of years. And a lot of the assessments that are given, for example, like the MAP that we've taken for a lot of years, I know we're switching to iReady, but for the MAP assessment, a lot of that is standards-based. My daughter personally has struggled to meet her end-of-the-year goals in both of those areas. We have 2 educated parents who work with her at home and support her, and so that's kind of been something that's a little concerning too. Is why isn't my daughter as well as the rest of our student population falling short from the state average? And looking into the curriculum that we're using, and I know that there's funding that goes along with that, but looking at, is the curriculum that we're using the best curriculum to meet those standards that we need to be teaching the students so that they are meeting those goals by the end of the school year? And in some areas, I think that we could look at changing some of the curriculum. I know one of the concerns right now is that writing is an area of concern, or that we're not as solid in. And so looking into what can we come up with for a writing curriculum. Because right now I think that there isn't a solid writing curriculum. And that's just one way that I think that we can better meet those standards, we can better meet the needs of the children. Running records is something that is an ongoing assessment that a lot of schools do throughout the school year, fall, winter, and spring. And it gives the teachers an opportunity to just have the children do a reading passage, and then there's comprehension questions, and they're keeping track of errors they're making and what kind of errors they're making. And it really gives the teacher a tool to say, okay, what is this child excelling at? What is this child struggling at? And how can I use this assessment to get them to the point that they need to be at? And without using that in this district, I feel that it's hard to know where a child is in reading and where it is that they need to get to. I've had some situations where, in asking, where is my child reading, or what could I be doing at home to help them? It's not always quite sure where she's reading at. And I've had parents that have come up to me and said to me, I asked my child's teacher what level they're reading at, and they said they didn't know, but they'd have somebody from the district come in. So I want that assessing of children's reading to go from somebody coming in from the district level and having that be put into the classroom so that the teachers have ownership over that student's learning and that they can communicate that to the parents, but more importantly, so they have that knowledge base so that they can move those students forward. I was once asked, do I have these concerns? Is my daughter behind? My passion for coming and wanting to be part of the board or coming to meet with anybody in the district is not because of my daughter. Is it part of it? Sure, I love her, I want the best for her, but it's more my passion of just wanting all kids to know that they got the absolute best education. And I feel like I can be an asset to helping develop some of that curriculum stuff. Another thing that we do as teachers is report cards, and that is a tool to share with families what it is that your child is able to do, what it is that they need to work on. Right now, our report card system is very, very basic in that it's the information that I feel like I get as a parent is not as detailed as I wish it would be. It's not related to the Common Core state standards. A lot of districts have moved the report cards to be aligned with the state standards so that I can specifically see, okay, this standard that my child needs to know by the end of the year, she is proficient, she's not yet there yet, or she's exceeding. And so I think as a district, we need to move in that direction as well so that parents can be more informed of what exactly it is that they are learning and where exactly their student is performing in that area. I'll stop. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, we have one question.
Yes.
What would you like to accomplish during your board appointment if appointed?
That is kind of what I'd like to accomplish, is what I've been discussing. I also just feel like I got the energy for this and the passion and ready to give the commitment that's needed. And I strongly believe that the community and myself as a member of that community needs to invest in public education, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. Not comfortable to sit in front of you, right? But just to push myself to be, I'm a part of this community and I want to be a part of the school district's board and help support and, try to be an asset to the team.
Questions? Calling that just in case.
I actually have one.
Yeah.
In your, I know, surprise, huh? I'm mostly just listening here, but in your letter you talked about when you worked at Thoreau, being part of the problem-solving committee.
Yeah.
And dealing with issues that teachers had. And I wondered if you could just say a little bit about the process that you experienced in doing that.
Yeah. So we met monthly, and teachers would submit problems they're having. It could be something as simple as, and this was an example that came up, it could be something as simple as the staff bathrooms were a mess. Or it could be something more complicated as a teacher not feeling supported by what we had at our school was called the behavior support staff. Mm-hmm. So feeling like if they had a student in the room that was presenting with challenging behaviors, they felt like when they called 0 to say, I need support, that, for example, the support person might come, handle the situation temporarily, send the student back in, and the problems just continued, if not escalated. So they would say, this isn't working. So then we would go to, the problem behavior team, and we would come up with solutions as to saying, this isn't working. How can we better have a student re-enter the classroom with the teacher feeling like, okay, I feel like what I needed accomplished is accomplished, and I feel like I'm also ready for the child to re-enter, and they're in a calm and good place to be.
And so on that team, there were administrator representatives on
Yep,
the team as well.
our
So it was
administrator
a
was there.
combined team. Okay, so it was a matter of collaboration, kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
That was exactly my question. Almost word for word. So, thank you.
Susan.
I didn't even raise my hand yet.
Okay.
Thanks, Becky. one of the things you talked about, and I know we struggle with this, and we've been talking about this like last night and tonight. The comment you made was the community needs to invest in education. And a lot of the communities say, yeah, well, we pay our taxes and we do this. But kind of what's your thought about how do we make that better? How do we as a district help make the community, whether it's parents or other community members, feel invested in the education of the children in the school district?
I think it's having a lot of conversations. Even once last year I came to a board meeting and I was scared to come to the board meeting because I didn't even know if you were allowed to come to a board meeting, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that a lot of the community is unaware of kind of what are the rules, what aren't the rules about where you're able to be involved and when you're not able to be involved. But I think amongst the parents, I remember when we've been in Monona about 3 years now, 3 or 4 years. And I would try to have some conversations when my daughter started kindergarten and I was having some concerns and having conversations with parents, and parents would be like, oh, we love it. My kid comes home happy every day. I'm like, that's great. Let's talk about maybe some educational things. And it's really pushed the conversation and it's pushed the boundaries of what we're able to have, the conversations that we're able to have even in my friend network, which then spreads to other people, you know? So I think people, they want to get involved. I think they just don't know how to get involved. So maybe even having some open parent meetings where parents feel like they can come and it's not just something that they need to submit or that they need to then submit and then come and present in front of the board, because it's scary. And when I've had concerns in the past, people say, well, go tell the board about it, you know? And my reaction is, not going to do that, you know? So I think just having more meetings where it's open for groups of people to come and feel like they can just have even small conversations at tables instead of it being in front of the board.
So if I ask you to make a list of 5 things that you would prioritize for parent presentations for this year, what would say that? I don't know the answer to that.
5 things that I would prioritize as parents.
Just give me 1 or 2.
Okay.
Dan, are we listening?
Well,
because I'd love to do that. We have the PTO, but I think what happens is at the board we have so much business to do that if you come and watch the board meeting, you're watching business, and a lot of it's been facility. Again, having them understand why, if and when we need to go back to educational referendum, having them understand what the reports mean, the actual, the reports on the building reports on the students. And
I don't think a lot of people, if I wasn't a teacher coming in and kind of asking questions right away in kindergarten, as a parent, there's a lot I wouldn't know, So I think, one perfect example would be going over the district report card and what does that mean in each individual category. I also think talking about student growth would be another category to have parents come in and want to talk about. I think student engagement. I think of equity among racial groups, right? Are we bringing those parents in? Are we actually having interviews and conversations with those students? At my school, one of my friends that I worked closely with, Shelton Evans, he came into the building. It was a program through the university, and they would work with groups of primarily African American boys. And it made a huge difference in those relationships, not only between myself and Shelton and them seeing that relationship, but myself and the students and the relationships between the students themselves. But they would meet, they'd see each other daily, and then they'd meet weekly for a lunch bunch group, and they talk about just like real things that are going on in the school, how they're feeling about that, what it's like to be black in the school, what it's like to be black male in the school. and just conversations that a lot of times we don't have, that we need to have and they need to be supported in. And also as teachers, like, you can pretend that you best know how to deal with in those situations, or you best know how to deal with students from different minority groups, but like it takes a teacher and an adult to say, no, I'm not a master at this. No, I didn't grow up African American male. And it needs going to somebody else to say, yeah, help me, right? Support me in this. So, okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you guys for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question? Or time's up?
The time.
Ask it.
We can ask your question.
Okay. The equity and the learning,
Teaching,
Teaching,
teaching, learning equity committee. Is there room for another board member on that committee?
There could be.
Okay.
There could be.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much.
So one thing you can do is communicate with the chair with any questions that you have.
Okay.
The email's up on the website,
Okay. Thanks.
right? Did you redact that?
All right, next up is Eric Arnold.
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
Do any of you need a break before we?
Yes. No.
I got a couple minutes, I mean, it's up to you. Well, thank you. Would you prefer that I just begin right away?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Well, I guess before I get too much into what I have come to share with you today, I would like to offer some condolences, and I am sorry for the loss that you as a board have experienced, and of course the loss that the community at large has experienced. This is certainly not, I'm sure, what you would have, foreseen or wanted to do, but for what it's worth, as a community member, regardless of how this pans out, I greatly appreciate the effort that you are placing to do this work in what is probably a difficult situation. And I think it's really incredible how many people have answered the call too, and it's really awesome that you're taking the time to visit with all of us. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you for letting me do so.
That's because the job pays so well.
Oh, good to know. Should be told, I didn't know this was a paid position until I was at a budget meeting last week, and you voted. You didn't, unfortunately, get the lift you were asking for. But yeah, that's great. But thanks. All right. So in any case, my name is Eric Arnold. I am a math teacher at East High School in the Madison School District. I have 2 young kiddos that are currently at Taylor Prairie here in town. We're very excited for them to be there and to be a part of this community. And I guess not to be too repetitious of the things that I put in my letter of interest, but I thought maybe what I prefer to do to introduce myself further is to speak about things that I feel most strongly about, that I feel passionately about. For me, a lot of the things I think about when it comes to education land squarely on how I believe they'll impact students. That the work you do, the work that I do at East, right, that's what it's all about. It boils down to, are we doing what we believe is honestly best for kids? And that looks different in a lot of different ways, and different schools and communities have different needs, right? And I think as Monona Grove District continues to grow and change, that we more and more, and not that the work isn't already being done, but to continue to push ourselves to work in ways to think about equitable access for all students, to think more about how we can encourage culturally responsive practices in our classrooms, to help not only instructors but also students understand the importance of their own social and emotional needs and how that's connected to the learning. Those are, in a lot of ways, the building blocks of us being able to build success, or like as I would say, in the Monona Grove district, continue to build that success. When my wife and I, when we moved here, I'll have to admit that it was less about picking Cottage Grove and more about picking the Monona Grove School District. So I really do think that there's a lot of great work that's been done, but obviously there's always more to do, right? Never ending, more to do. I'd like to think that my experience at East High School, which is a very diverse population, and the nearly 15 years I've spent in the district in total, has helped me develop a set of skills that, while in no means am I expert at, I would like to believe I could use to help benefit not only the board and our community, but again, ultimately, right, the whole purpose of what we do is for it to trickle down to help students. As like cheesy as it is to say, like I really am just like an education nerd. Like I love it. I feel compelled to engage in things involving education. I feel very fortunate to be deeply involved in the Madison School District. I feel very fortunate to be involved in the work that I do at Edgewood College. And as someone who lives and has children attending the Monona Grove School District, I would feel it's an incredible honor to be able to work amongst all of you towards the benefit of education here in this district. I think that's it for my intro.
Okay. So what would you like to accomplish during your board appointment if appointed?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So thinking about like the vision and the mission of this district and the things that are goals certainly for the district to move towards, thinking about our students being able to thrive and find their way in a ever more connected world where more and more expectations are placed upon them in terms of their ability to work with each other and to be able to stand on their own 2 feet independently. To know that there is active seeking out of increasing our staff's capacity to use culturally, linguistically responsive practices. That these are things I feel passionate about and feel that I could help provide insight on, or if nothing else, maybe offer a few new ideas. Not to presume that I would come in here and be a total rabble-rouser and that you need me in order to come up with great ideas. I know that certainly isn't the case. I just would really feel great to be able to support and be additive in the ways that I can. I know another goal is to attract and retain highly qualified, diverse staff. This is something that I've been lucky enough to be working on already in the school district, and in part it's due to my connection with Edgewood College. Even in the coming months, I'll be continuing to work as representative largely of both institutions, working on trying to create more of a grow your own program within our district to try to help some of our diverse students see that education is not only a viable but a wonderful path that they could eventually pursue. This is something I would love to be able to bring into the Monona Grove School District. Should my ability to work with you, if I have that ability, that would be wonderful. I think that it's something that I would like to think I could add and help to the group. And I think in general, right, we think about what does it really take for students to be able to find success, and a lot of it, the root is that them feeling like they belong, that all students, right? And we think about, again, the vision and mission statement where we talk about all students. And, what does it really look like, and what does that turn into? Some of it's what we've already discussed, right? But a lot of it is also making sure that goes back to that diverse and highly qualified staff that we try to attract to our district. It can't be understated how important it is for our students of color to see themselves at the front of the room. It's a challenge we face even at East High School. And so being able to help with that or be able to work with that would be an incredible honor for me. I do want to say though, like in the midst of all of these ideas that are important for students, I wouldn't want to detract from the rigor and to understand that this is a very high achieving school district, has been for a long time. I'm sure will continue to be for a very long time, largely in part to the wonderful work being done in the schools and of course by the board present and in the past. And so that would certainly be a lens that I would maintain, Lastly, I guess I would say that like my overall hope is to be as effective as possible when I am here. This is a little bit part of my closing statement. Does that matter? I don't know if it flows. I fully acknowledge that there's probably a decent amount of information and knowledge that you have that I just certainly don't. But I can say that I would be very committed to learning these new things so that I wouldn't just be a person filling a seat. I would be someone that, again, could be viewed as a real team member. I certainly would want to be able to voice my opinion and to make sure that I am active in my membership, but that also that you would know that I would be a team member. And again, not just for the sake of us in the room, but again, ultimately that trickle down, to know that the decisions that we make, which are sometimes going to be very difficult ones, and not easy, and maybe not even always necessarily the most popular, but if we can feel grounded in our data and our research to know that what we've done is best for kids, that's where I want to be. Yeah. Do you have any other questions for me? Yeah.
Peter?
Clearly, I think you thought about this. You used the phrase equitable access. What
Sure.
does that mean to you?
Yeah, it means a lot of things, right? And it changes depending on student. Number one, we have to really do a great job of being able to identify needs, right? Once we can identify needs, then it gives us an opportunity to start building towards solutions. One way that you could try to address equity is, when it comes to access, right, is technological, right? Our school district and the Madison School District has really been working hard to be one-to-one, where all students have a Chromebook, because not all students have access to technology at home. But it also could be in other ways too, like, what does diversity look like in our AP courses? Are we making sure that all students have the same learning opportunities? And certainly, any student could sign up for a class, right? It wouldn't be declined because of class or et cetera. But at the same time, there's a difference. Again, I'll go back to the earlier comment I made about them feeling they belong. So what work has been done so that they feel as though they're a valued member of that classroom and can feel as though they can be there, right? Like, that's another aspect of the equitable access. So it's about providing needs, whether it's food or social emotional with like counselors and guidance in our school, or academic, and making sure that all students feel as though they can achieve the same opportunities. And it's a lot of work to be done, and there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to any of it. Thank you for asking.
Susan?
I appreciate hearing your insights about, again, we've studied Verona and some of the other school districts in terms of diversity and the AP classes. Do you have any thoughts about diversity in honors classes, like honors, biology, chemistry, physics?
Sure, yeah.
Math.
Go ahead, math. Yeah, math.
Other than AP?
Math. Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, schools are struggling across southern Wisconsin and all over the nation, really, with honors classes just as much as they are AP classes. In a lot of ways, students end up, even if we've done hard work in our schools to reduce tracking, in some ways, especially where there are these honors options, we end up still finding students that get separated at these forks in the road. Now, there are things to investigate, such as embedded honors or earned honors, which can allow students to be all in the same classroom together, yet still maybe accessing the material in a different way, or engaging in the expectations in a slightly adjusted way, to still be able to give a label of honors, but yet still be with their peers. So I think there are a lot of interesting things that are occurring right now in education to help us think more about that. But the reality is, at this point, generally speaking, those classrooms do not look like the rest of the school looks. Just as an anecdote, at East High School, we're about a third white, about a third African American, and then the rest of the third is pretty diverse as well. And then I teach an AP statistics course, and that classroom does not look like East High School looks. And then in my algebra for upper grades is for students that have not been able to pass algebra as a freshman. Well, that class kind of in the other direction does not look like the rest of East High School. And that's an important thing to be concerned about and an important problem to work towards solving, because there's a lot at risk there. It's not only being able to have the integrity to say that all students in this school are receiving their best opportunity, but it's also just more personal to those students. What can we say about their educational experience? What can we say about how they view themselves as learners when they know that there's some pigeonholing that's occurring as they move through our school and they see peers going in different classrooms than the one they're going into? And again, I don't think that that's a problem unique to East or the Madison School District. I think it's happening in the Monona Grove School District and all over the place. So yeah, I guess I have a lot of thoughts about honors and diversity and the work we have to do. Thank you for asking.
We're less than a minute. Any more questions?
If I may use a minute to make one last statement, if that's all right. Thank you. I guess I just want to say that, again, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and it'd be an honor to be among you and to do that work. Part of the key feature of education to me is the aspect of service, right? And this is such a great service that's being provided. And there's a lot of, you've been entrusted with quite a bit, actually. I mean, not just like building services and how to spend money, but I mean, ultimately, there are things that you'll decide in this board that will impact students and their learning for years and years to come. And that's a lot of trust, and it's pretty powerful and pretty great. So thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate your consideration and the questions you've given and the time you've provided.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody need to run back or anything? We have 2 more.
Coffee.
Thanks so much. If not, we can keep going.
Yeah.
Jump right in.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, come on down.
Are you Paul?
Paul Van Dorn. Welcome.
Moving right along.
We're ready.
Ready?
All right. So I just go ahead and open up?
Yep.
All right. Well, first off, I'd just like to say I appreciate this opportunity to have this conversation with you all as you're trying to seek out the right fit to backfill this very important role to help support you all in board level work with the Monona Grove School District. A little bit about myself. I'm a born and raised local guy to Cottage Grove. The majority of my time has been in that community. I'm deeply passionate about Cottage Grove, but more importantly, I'm deeply passionate about the Monona Grove School District. So I had the opportunity and the privilege to experience being a student going through this district. I was a graduate of the 1989 class. It's interesting, now in my time in Cottage Grove, from time to time I have conversations with people, and sometimes I hear the sentiment that our 2 communities might be at odds with each other, Monona and Cottage Grove. Sometimes they're as overt as thinking that maybe it's time for our 2 communities to split and have their own school districts. Well, I'll tell you that sentiment isn't something new. It existed at some level back when I was in school. But as a kid, going to Monona Grove High School, I didn't know any difference. You see, when I was a kid, I loved Monona just as much as I loved Cottage Grove. And I loved the opportunities that I had to forge and cultivate relationships, those new relationships with the Monona kids that carried on through my time in high school. And again, as kids, we didn't know any different. We were unified. We were MG students. And I believe that still exists today. And you all know this district is a very unique school district here in Dane County. But that's what makes us really special, is our 2 communities, and the strengths of our 2 communities continue to come together under this one umbrella. And if given the opportunity to be part of this board, I would want to assure that I would want my children to experience that special feel that I had, and also for many generations to come, under this one umbrella. My family, my wife Shelley, I'd be remiss if I didn't share with you that she has been a teacher's aide at Taylor Prairie over the last couple years. She's extremely fond of the team that she works with there. I have 4 daughters, a 7th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade, and 2nd grader, who are all in the district, who absolutely love the schools that they go to. And we've had a tremendous experience thus far with the teachers that they've had. As far as my professional background, I've been with the YMCA. I'll be going on 25 years here in January. Most of my time here with Madison, the YMCA of Dane County. And I've had the privilege to develop in managerial and leadership roles throughout that time. And my most recent assignment as the Chief Operating Officer of our 3-branch association. And what a lot of people don't know is we service 30 child care sites in that early childhood development and before and after school space through 8 different school districts throughout Dane County. And I would see a lot of parallels from the work that takes place at the YMCA with the district, and a lot of the experiences that I've been able to gain through my time there that could help support you all. I've managed budgets from small departmental budgets to $11.5 million operations, so I fully understand what it takes to balance a budget and assure that we are performing financially, that we're performing strong for the overall health of the organization. So in turn, we can do more in providing the needs throughout Dane County. I've been involved with many sub-level or ad hoc committees, being a key staff with other board members, board of director members from the YMCA, finance and audit, buildings and grounds, so experiencing capital dollars and reinvesting those capital dollars in our branches for the long-term stewardship of those branches. Love of impact. I know diversity and inclusion is a strong focus with the district, and so it is at the Y. We have a committee very specific to that, and part of my leadership is to assure that we are inclusive to all walks of life that either walk through our door, the service that we provide throughout Dane County, that we're giving everybody an opportunity to meet their needs. And then I am a staff liaison that sits on our corporate board, so I fully understand how governance works. The last thing I would say in terms of parallels that I would say is most important is that our YMCA, our mission, is to be something bigger than the organization and transcend the organization itself, and that's to provide a greater impact in the lives of the people that we're serving throughout Dane County. And I see that parallel with the experts and the educators that you have in the field, that they are doing all that they can to provide a greater impact in the lives of the children that they're serving here within the district. And I think for those opening comments and opening thoughts, I feel like I would be a good fit to help support you all to take our services to the next level and for that long-term stewardship of the Monona Grove School District for many more years to come. And so it sounds like I saw the agenda. The next question is about
what would you like to accomplish during your board appointment if appointed?
Yeah, and I think it's a great question. It's my understanding it's like 6 to 7 months left on the term. And so for the short run, I would like to get in right away and understand how we're setting and driving policy as a board. I would also like to, in that time period, I think there's enough time period to understand what are the opportunities for us to potentially partner as a district with other organizations, and very specific examples in that early childhood development. It's my understanding that the data supports that some of our children are coming into the district that are behind, and we have that gap. And maybe there's opportunities with other service providers that can help support that early childhood development to better prepare these kids, our children, before they come to us in 4K. And then I would say lastly, and I would say equally as important as the other two, I would be extremely visible. I'm already doing that with my children's programs, but I would even be doing more so. I'd be in the trenches and, and first and foremost to support our experts in the field and know that they have that level of advocacy from me as a board member. And if there's opportunities to have some open-handed conversation, I would see that as a good opportunity to have some conversation. I certainly wouldn't get into the minutia of any operations. That's really for Dan and his team to manage. But if there was opportunities to have open conversation and really listen to our experts in the field and embrace their ideas to help us, support us to make better decisions as a board moving forward. I guess long term, I understand that this term is up in April, and if there's an opportunity, I know there's a process of campaigning, and I don't know if it would be considered renewal of a term or if it's a new term. But I would say, what are the opportunities to, I don't know how we set yearly goals and objectives. I would see that as agreed upon, shared and agreed upon with Dan and his team, not only to support Dan and his team, but also for me as a board member, that I'd be able to sink my teeth into really owning those goals and objectives, so we can hold each other accountable and assure the level of success, for our school district. Maybe from a broad stroke, I would see my role as a board member really from that 30,000 foot bird's eye view, and strategy and vision. And again, I have to parallel it back to my experiences. I've had experiences doing long-term strategic plans, capital campaigns. I've heard that potentially might be something on the radar. We've gone through a capital campaign process where we raised funds to support building our Sun Prairie facility back in 2007. I was deeply involved with that. And then all the other ad hoc committees that I had mentioned, and being engaged with that work. Now, when you say accomplishment, I know I'm answering it with engagement, but I would be deeply engaged in that work, and I would think that naturally accomplishment would come from that. And then the last thing I would say is, if given the opportunity to be with you all, I would want to be assured that we are providing all the resources and putting systems in place to allow our staff to be successful for their professional development, but systems in place to allow them to flourish. And I think in turn, to have a healthy culture to ensure that level of high standards that we expect for our educators to impart on our children, not only to develop them from an educational perspective and preparing them for either higher education or the marketplace, but also preparing them to be good citizens as we cast them out into our communities and society at large. And the last thing I would say in wrapping up is that, I didn't know Jeff personally. And I know you all did, and I know maybe some of you in this room knew him. And I'm extremely sorry for that loss. And I understand that this is a very unique situation. And I would take this role extremely serious. And I would be all in, deeply engaged, and I would just relish the opportunity to help support you all in the long-term stewardship of the Monona Grove High School District. All right, Monona Grove, you know what I mean? So,
Peter?
I'm very curious about why you went in your answer there. It's directly to understanding how we are writing and setting policy.
What's that?
I'm curious to understand why you went straight to your phrase, understanding how we are writing and setting policy. Why was that the first thing you mentioned?
Well, it certainly is not a priority if that's where you're, if that's the reason behind the question, but I would want to understand policy, which I don't understand policy right now, and maybe that would be the question of why am I pursuing this? I'll be honest with you, I haven't been really engaged, with what's been happening with the school district. I felt like it was space, time, and a capacity with season of life, and I feel like in my conversations with my wife that I'm at a place that I can fully give, to help support this board. I don't know the policies, and I would really want to understand them moving forward. It wouldn't necessarily be if you're looking to see if that I'm trying to change policy, but I would really want to understand them.
Yeah, I just asked a question. Nobody else has mentioned policy.
Okay.
I'm just curious why you sort of led with that, and
Yeah.
if there's something that you were thinking about.
Yeah. Thanks for the question, Peter.
Was there another one if there's not?
Go ahead.
You're COO of the YMCA, Dane County YMCA. How do you go about implementing change?
One step at a time. I think that comment about diversity and inclusion, I know it was kind of a broad stroke, we are always looking at how can we support the real needs in our community. And that really is being a change agent, providing space for all to come, whether it's our financial assistance. We provide a program for teens at our branches on Friday nights, and that was all rooted from what happened in March of 2015. Happened in Ferguson before us, happened here in Madison with the shooting of Tony Robinson. And we felt like we need to be engaged not only to bring healing to the community, but to be a change agent. And we quickly met with the mayor, Paul Sogwin, and our chief of police, Mike Koval, and we developed a partnership, and we ran a program that was, we opened our space to all teens 13 to 18 all throughout Dane County, and we served over 400 some kids over the last 5 years each summer, and to be honest with you, 90% of them, are at-risk kids that are out on the streets, and so I don't know if I'm getting to your answer to your question, Peter, but I think it's, one step at a time and trying to do all that we can to support the needs in our community.
Question?
Do we have time?
1 minute.
Okay. With your experience and your background, what kind of advice would you give us in terms of increasing engagement of the stakeholders in the school district into the district, into the workings and what we do?
Well, I don't know if you've ever thought of, and if you've done, and again, back to my earlier answers to Peter, not being engaged, I don't know if you've done listening sessions, forums that really create space beyond the board meetings. I know that they're public, people come to the board meetings, but, would you consider forums of having listening sessions? We've done that, and they've been effective in my experience at the Y.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right. And all the best as you find that right fit for this role. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
All right. Next up. Hey, thanks for coming. All right, is Amy Bryce.
Very familiar right here. Usually I only have 3 minutes, so 15. Anything could happen. I first of all, I honestly appreciate your time. I know that I joke with you and whatever, but I do appreciate the time that you guys are taking to hear all of these people, and I'm really excited that so many people put their name in. I want to just kind of start out by answering the question that I know you guys have, which is what I hope to accomplish. I think having the past year fly by between myself and all of you wonderful people, obviously the facilities planning has been on my mind, and it's not that many months, so I would like to make sure that that is, obviously it's a priority, but that it's really being thought through, that we are reaching out to parents, staff, whatnot. I know you guys are. I know some of the staff that has been, in some of the planning sessions and stuff. So that is my focus, I guess, is making sure that gets done, and moving into the first shovel going in. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. I know in my letter I mentioned that I do volunteer on a committee in Deerfield. I try to volunteer in whatever capacity I have the ability to. I'm on the Business Improvement District Board there, which is voluntary. And obviously, you know that I've been here in front of you speaking not only on my behalf, but on behalf of many other people that come to me and trust me to speak for them when they feel that they maybe cannot for whatever reason. And I've always been somebody that people can trust, and that I will keep their confidence,
yet share their ideas. I have been to many of the board meetings, so I am up to date on what you guys are doing. The board meetings that I have not come to, I have watched either on live stream or after the fact on the video. I work out of town a lot, so I'm not always able to be here, but should I be appointed, that would be something that I can schedule around for the most part. Having said that, I guess I want to take just a moment to, I'm not asking that you not appoint me, but what I am asking is if I am not even on your radar for this appointment for whatever reason, that the person who does take this appointment or is given this appointment is somebody from Cottage Grove. With all due respect to the members on this board that are from Monona, I feel like taxation without representation right now. You know, Sarah brought it up when she was interviewing, and it's a fact. It's not a fact that I like, but it is a fact. And you need to have somebody who is living what is going on in Cottage Grove, what is happening in that community. It just right now that has to be, and maybe that is the way. I know that Jeff really just wanted to extend that hand and wanted to figure out a way to accomplish bringing the communities together and keeping them together, and that's why it's important to me. I just really want to see that appointee. Who knows what's going to happen in April's election, but I just want it to finish out with somebody, you know, that's living it. I sat here for 2 full nights of these interviews because I want to know, you know, what you guys are hearing firsthand. I like eyeballs. So I wanted to be here to feel it, to see what the sense in the room was, to hear what you're hearing, because it's important to me too. Whether I'm on this board or not, it's important to me to know who is in the community and who might be taking that seat. The majority of the interviews, I'm glad to say, have been Cottage Grove residents, so that's nice. So I just kind of wanted to take some time and just remind you of those residents. David, forgive me if it's Bike, I'm not sure, I think it's Bike. You know, he's very community driven. In his interview, he showed commitments to projects, a lot of follow through. Laureen Gage was amazing. She had experience, she was well rounded. I wrote, brings insight from many angles, personal and professional. Mindy, multitasker, likes being busy. Kind of get that. You know, she's got the legal aspect to her. Elizabeth Cook wants to focus on what's happening now. She could not be more enthusiastic and really wants to talk to people and engage. Brandon listens closely. He was a quick thinker. He understood technology that's, you know, we're going into the future. And he showed interest in taking the position past the initial appointment. Eric, you know, thinking about diversity, equality of learning opportunities. He's a working educator, which is amazing that, you know, like he doesn't have enough to do, that he wants to then come here, share his experience, and work with the community, I think is amazing. And then Paul, you know, known in both Monona Grove and Cottage Grove. I might just be speaking for myself, but I think he's well respected in both communities. I like the guy. He's realistic about the timing of the appointment and thinking about the potential of what could be accomplished, you know, in that time frame. So many of them, probably all of them, looking back, were community volunteers, which is important to me. And, you know, you're going to need to be able to work with a variety of people. Thinking back on this past referendum, the open house that we had here, you had retirees here, you had, you know, young parents with children, you had old parents like me with kids. So many different people with so many different needs that have to be heard. So the fact that somebody's willing to volunteer in the community to me is huge. And that's just, where I'm coming from. So again, not trying to talk you out of me, but please remember that you had some awesome candidates from Cottage Grove. And I would just ask that you really consider that for this short appointment. That's my story.
All right, and you already.
18 minutes past though.
No, you've already answered the question, so. let's
Peter?
go ahead.
Anything?
You want me to jump in there? I will.
Well, I know you're just chomping at the bit.
Actually, well.
Maybe not.
Deerfield Business, that's your last chance to get out here.
Business Improvement District.
Business Improvement District. Tell me about the decision-making process of that, and your involvement there.
It has varied. So I've been on it for several years now. I was actually asked by, I think the village president was originally the one that asked me to be on that board. I'm not even sure, but it's been a while. It has evolved each year, honestly. So the Business Improvement District, it is money that myself as I was going to say a rental owner. I'm an owner of a commercial business there, commercial and rental. And we pay into the Business Improvement District, and that money is used for several different things. There's grants that we sit down and, if you apply for a grant, does it meet the criteria of that grant? And, sitting face to face and talking to them, what do you need to get done? It's a lot to do with the aesthetics, if you will, of the downtown area. So our budget meeting is always how much for planting flowers, how much to redo a sidewalk, the minutia of that sometimes gets, do we want to buy 5 more lights so when somebody crashes into it and, and they might not be making these anymore. So there's a lot of detail on that. The most recent change that we've made, I don't know if you want to call it a change, but we have allocated some of the money in our budget to go to cleanup of the sidewalks, which normally would be something that the village would do, but if we have a heavy, I can't remember what it is right now, heavy snowfall of 3 inches, I don't know what it is, that we as the bid board have decided to pay somebody to come in and remove the snow off the sidewalks, making it easier for people that are visiting businesses downtown to be able to get to those businesses right away in the morning. So those are decisions that are not always popular. I have fought many times with my husband on why I made a decision to cost us more money to pay into the bid board. But that is what a committee does, makes some popular decisions and some unpopular decisions. I make unpopular decisions every night at my house, ask my children. So I'm used to that. True.
Have any other questions?
If you want me to sing a little ditty, not afraid to do that. Oh, yes.
No surprise there. I'd like to hear about your involvement in the school district, in the village or the town, or that kind of those pieces, things that you've done kind of within our scope.
Well, you have seen and heard much of what I have done to volunteer my services, just because I've sat here many times. But I do, smallest thing I've done probably is, and I deserve an award, I rode the swim bus from GDS to the swim lessons for the 5th graders more times than I have children, because they needed somebody to fill a spot and there wasn't a parent to fill that spot, and I was able to rearrange my schedule. So, little things like that.
15 field trips.
It was some long days, but but it was fun. I had fun. I'm not lying, but so there's that type of stuff. It's generally the little last minute things where I can, offer, if I see something. A lot of the teachers will put stuff online or whatever they need, whatever, books. Okay, let me gather some books in the neighborhood and bring it to you, that sort of thing. Because I am gone a lot, I can't say to a teacher, yes, I will come into your classroom every Wednesday for 2 hours and help sort papers. Unfortunately, I can't do that. I would love to. I would love to do that. Can't do that. But I do try and help out where I can. So I do hear, because I have worked with, helped out, many teachers, spoken to a lot of the faculty. I do hear a lot of what they need. Sat in the workshop, listened to the principals speak, and sometimes as a parent you're focused on you and your child and it's one focus, but there comes a time when you have to figure out, okay, well, my selfish needs to be put aside so that the teachers can get what they want, so that the principals can find the needs of their school and get that done. And with this facility going on, I have no children that will be in that new school, but I think it's really important that for the parents that will have kids in that school, that it gets done right. So once I was removed from it, I still kept coming to the board meetings and as you all know, because I was really fighting to get what the principals wanted, and when that kind of didn't work out, now I'm going to make sure that the parents that are going to be using that school and the students and the teachers that are going to be in that school get what they need and what they want.
That is the time.
I mean, I'm the last one. I could stay here all night. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. To the point of discussion and possible approval of appointment of school board member to fill the open school board seat through April 2020. So with the voting method process, we look at here, just reading through.
Well, for starters, we can do voice votes for everything if we so choose. If somebody asks for roll call votes, we can do that. The other thing we could do is use what we assign ballots, which become public records. We also need to, are we going to do sort of a mass thing, or are we going to, one way to do it is to sit here and nominate and vote on individual members until we get a majority. Another is to sort of do a process of elimination. Does anybody have any opinions?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just, didn't have a lot of time to think about this, but I was thinking maybe even everybody nominating two and just see.
That's what I was
two. I was just thinking two was.
I was thinking 2 or 3.
Two, yeah.
2 would be easier, and I would certainly be ready to do that.
Yeah. It's just,
I was going to suggest something like that, pick a number. I would like to maybe get 3 each.
yeah.
And we could see how much we have in common. I think we may find there's.
Should we do that as a nomination, or should we do that as a vote on accepting the? We could nominate.
Because we could nominate everybody.
And then vote
3.
and say give everybody 3.
Yeah.
That way it gives everybody,
Well, that's sort of the same thing, but yeah, that would work.
well, it is
Yeah.
procedurally, it's a little
Procedurally, it's
different.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so,
So I would make a motion to nominate all applicants, all of the current applicants, I guess with the exception of Ann Shapiro, as she withdrew for the
and,
position.
and Christie,
Need to open this up.
And, oh yes, I'm sorry.
Christie, Nito.
yes.
Yeah, she's not on this list today, so.
Right. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, and so can
But that would
we
be,
do that on a signed ballot or just by
we
voice?
can just
or-
do by voice vote if we want to. We just nominate everybody. The motion is to nominate
Right,
everybody.
okay.
So you're not,
So I just need a second.
So you,
Second.
okay.
Second.
Okay, so Dean second.
and then
Okay, now we,
you could debate it if we didn't want to do that.
Wait, so now, if that's the case, we have 14 candidates that we.
Could vote on.
So I think, Susan, you mentioned maybe top 2, Dean, you mentioned top 3. I would be fine with either, each of us voting on our top 2 or 3 and then seeing where we're at and picking maybe, see if we come to consensus, maybe we do.
So in other words, the way we would do this would be Andrew would read the name, is what you're saying you want to do, and show of hands. Is that what you're
Yeah, or we
talking
could use
about?
the sign,
Or
start
we
using
could
the
use
sign ballots again.
I like the idea of 3 that way, I
Yeah,
guess, because I don't want to limit, I'd rather.
Sure.
so we'll do the sign on the right.
I don't want to eliminate the idea of
Right,
3.
right, I like
But
that too.
I checked off 5 altogether that I thought were good. Did anybody else?
I think I can narrow my
I
list.
can narrow mine.
I could narrow mine to
Five
2.
too, but if I had to, I think I could.
Yeah.
It's exactly the number.
So I
was
think
at.
you need to note, or will you do this for us, Joyce?
Yeah.
Which ballot this is the
Yes,
first?
I'm gonna, yep, I'll
Right.
take them and keep them.
We need to vote on the nomination first?
Yeah, are we all in favor of nominating all 14 candidates, right? Is that what we need to do?
And we second, oh,
Yeah.
all
That's
in
been
favor?
done. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So go ahead and now we vote on our top 3.
I would just, well, it's up, I mean, I don't know, there hasn't been a motion to do that, don't we need someone, we just doing that?
Well,
Is that
without
what we agreed with?
objection, we could do this without objection.
We
if
have kind of
want
a
to.
consensus that
We have a
we're doing
consensus.
Okay,
that.
I have a question, just clarifying question. When we're voting for our top 3, are we just giving, are we ranking the votes, or are we just a vote for your top 3?
I would just check.
How about
check.
just check marks this time?
Check marks?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think.
Check the top 3.
Check the top 3.
We each
okay.
vote 3 to 3 different people.
Okay.
We sign it at the bottom, correct? Okay.
Write your name legibly. No, don't fold them.
You don't need to fold them? Oh.
Yeah. Just make Joyce's work harder. Just make Joyce's night longer.
Sorry.
Give her paper sets.
Hey, Joyce, can I just check, I just want to make sure I got my names right. You get me and get it back here real quick, just so I can verify. I don't want
Those are open records, we could all ask.
to. Yep, I know. I got it right, okay. So if we're all on the same page, we'll have 3 candidates then? That we
That's
will
right.
be narrowing down to 3.
Whoever's the
We're on the same page.
Yep.
So we'll probably have 5.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That'd be fine. I mean, I
Sure.
like that because it gives you more time to kind of
Yeah. And I think it's a good process to keep narrowing it down. I think that works. I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah. At some point we should, well, at each round we can discuss if we want to advocate for or against.
I was happy that we got so many candidates.
Oh, that was amazing. You know, the other thing is, can we, Andrew, I don't know how we would do this, just for discussion later, because we have a break here. Can we make sure that as a board, there's a thank you letter to every single person
OBrien?
who
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, these guys did that.
applied, actually from the whole board, because I think we all really appreciated that.
I think some of these people were thinking, well, I'll put my name in because, nobody else, who else is going to apply?
Right.
It
But
doesn't do
again,
us-
they made a real time
Oh, yeah.
commitment
Yeah.
and they've put in a lot of thought into this work.
Well, and I think, some of the people who don't, since we're only gonna choose one, there might be some other future candidates here, which is good to assess. It's good.
Right, right. I just want us to be able to say thank you, because it's kind of hard in this environment. I mean, we kind of did it, but
Didn't know we needed a notarized document.
did you get it notarized? No?
All right. So our top three tied with four.
Well, no, everybody who has a nomination.
Everyone has a nomination.
Everybody who has a vote, right?
Okay, everyone who has a vote is Eric Arnold.
Are you gonna tell us how many votes
One.
though, or?
Are you telling us who are the,
And I'm gonna tell you how many votes they get.
Okay.
Eric Arnold has 1. Elizabeth Cook, 4. Lorraine Gage, 4. Mindy Gittos, 1. Rebecca Nenke, 2. Jennifer Smith, 1. Sarah Smith, 1. Paul Vandervelde, 4.
So we want to take those three.
So we could take those
Yep.
three.
So out of those 3,
I mean, we could do that at this point.
And then we
eliminate.
vote
Yes,
for
since
one,
there's such
we
a-
each vote.
And just each vote
One of the
for-
things we could do is we could vote for 2 and see how we come up.
We could each vote for one.
I'm really okay with however everybody
One.
wants to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's as long as we get the right candidate that everybody wants, we're all gonna be, I mean, there's gonna be some, but seems like we're pretty close, so. I'm open to however you,
What if you can't decide?
I can decide.
Can you
I
help
would
me?
suggest-
Help me.
another suggestion.
I would suggest that we move the 4 vote getters to the next round, and then
vote for one or
vote
vote
one
for two.
and vote for one.
Yeah, I
After
think that
that.
makes sense.
Okay, see where we get.
Where we get.
I would support that.
That's so hard. It's the,
Does anybody? Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's do that.
good as
maybe
any?
we could have 2 people come every other time. Oh, joking.
Well, actually, before we go to the vote, we have 3 candidates: Lorraine Gage, Elizabeth Cook, Paul Vanderbilt. Does anybody think or see value in spending more time, say, inviting them to come back and hearing more from each of them, or is everybody ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to vote.
Um, Okay, I can see a reason that is clearly not a
So we have to sign
consensus
these
for
to-
this.
Sign it and
What are we voting for, 1 now?
We're ready for
the 3 names that we have.
So does anybody want to speak or advocate? Because this is debatable. We should have an opportunity to speak or advocate for any one of these if we want
Do
to.
you want to do that now or after this vote?
After the vote.
Well, we can,
Yeah, we can
before
wait.
the vote, you have
We
to give
can-
everybody an
yeah.
opportunity to speak.
Well, I'd like to hear some people make a case for each one of the 3.
So, Dean, would you like to?
No, I have no case to make.
But you want all of us to.
You want us to do it?
Well,
Yeah, I don't feel a need to, I guess, but.
Well, anybody who can, wants to, should have an opportunity at this point.
Right, so if somebody wants to, go for it.
You know what might be, I was going to say, your thought process about what's really important. I mean, I think we already did that, so forget it, by our vote.
Yeah. Just cast this vote and then let's tally it up.
Sure, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Could I have 15 minutes? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, really, just
Double check, make sure I didn't make any mistakes.
I signed this time.
Actually, one of us gets to not sign at each round. One person can forget. What's the motion to accept someone to the board? What is the motion, and what would be a final motion?
And what date do they start?
Well, we don't really have to make a motion, I don't think. I think we're just voting and then.
I would like to, if we do.
Maybe make a motion to appoint them, right?
We need to make a motion to appoint, yeah.
You just, once you have someone with 4 votes, the majority of board has voted to appoint.
That's
But
right,
we-
that's right. There's
right.
a separate motion. Yeah.
All right. Elizabeth Cook, 1. Paul Van Velde, 1. Lorraine Gage, 4.
All right. And we're good, right?
That's the majority vote. Don't sound like we need to make a motion to appoint because it says it right here.
That's
Well-
right. She is appointed, I mean, she's appointed because we voted
Yeah.
for her, so there doesn't need to be a separate.
I'll move to appoint Lorraine Gage to the vacant position on the Monona Grove School Board.
Second?
Motion second. Shouldn't have any discussion because the vote just mattered. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
I think that was-
Congratulations to Lorraine Gage. She has been appointed for, Lorraine Gage to be appointed for our board seat to serve until April 2020. I'd like to have a motion for adjournment.
Oh, can
I move we adjourn.
When does,
Oh.
just,
That's right.
when
we
does
need-
that start?
Yeah, they call her, she
They-
gets sworn in.
I would call her.
Yeah, she gets sworn in,
Okay.
she's on, yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
There's no,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Motion to adjourn.
I made a motion to adjourn. Someone can
Second.
Second.
All right, second.
Very second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.